everyone and welcome. Chilly night, so thank you for coming out, and I really appreciate you being here tonight. So my topic that I'm speaking on tonight is difficulties and life's challenges, and then I'll be introducing my book which I've written. So I want to just say that last night, that's my topic for tonight, which is quite a heavy topic, but last night there was like 200 people gathered in the room adjacent to this one, and we were all playing bingo, and it was a fun evening. I don't know who was there. Just do a little raise hand. Did anyone see me go up to win twice? So sometimes in life this happens, that things go up and things are very exciting, and it was really exciting. You know that feeling when I've got one number left, are they going to call it a bingo, right? And then it happened again. So twice I went up to win bingo last night, which was super exciting. And then also good things happen in our lives, which are, the ups, but then also things happen in our lives which are not so good and not so bad, and they're sad and they're tragic and they're difficult. And so how do we move between those things? So we have the highs and we have the lows. And actually, if you look at the heart monitor, which checks our heart, if you've got this kind of emotion of highs and lows, it's actually quite a good sign, because this doesn't look so good. So that's what we're going to speak about a little bit. This month that we're actually in, this Hebrew month, is the month of Tevet. And the month of Tevet, we just had last week a fast day. That's all that happens in this month. So it's actually a little bit of a cold month. It's winter, it's raining, the nights are long, the days are short. And this is the time when the first fast, which is culminating in Tisha B'Av later on in the year, this is when, the start of the end all happened on this fast. So what actually happens is that we look at this month and we say, wow, Shemzach, but, misken, it's a month, it's dark, it's winter, not much happening. But there's a clue to us of how to overcome darkness and difficulty and challenge by looking at what's happening at the end of the month before, is Chanukah. Chanukah is the only festival that spans 2 months, Kislev, and then it goes into Tevet. So if the month of Tevet is symbolized by this fast day, which is quite a sad day, then we look just before it, and we see what comes there is the greatest of light. We have usually candle 5, 6, 7, 8. So it's culminating, the days are getting brighter and brighter. And that is something that gives us encouragement to get through our difficulties. That it's not just difficulties happen and we don't have the ability to deal with them, but that there is light that comes in our lives before that. So at the beginning of COVID, I heard an interview of a nurse who was working in one of these emergency rooms in New York, and she was totally overwhelmed. Sorry, she wasn't a nurse, she was head of the trauma unit or the ER or whatever it was, all the emergencies coming in. And all these patients were coming in and they were dying, and if you just remember the beginning, it was absolutely desperate. We didn't know where to turn. We were all petrified in lockdown, and she was interviewed on a really busy and traumatic day. And the reporter who interviewed her said, "How are you coping? How are you managing with all this tragedy, with all this unknown and uncertainty of getting through with all this death and this dying and this under harsh circumstances? Family members couldn't be there, and if just remember how chaotic it was." And she said, this was her answer, she said, "My whole life, every event that has taken place in my life prepared me for this moment." And I found that to be quite profound, because we go through the ups and we go through the downs, and everything in our life story prepares us for what's happening right now. So things might be difficult and things might be challenging, but if we can take something out of those things, then we can deal with the difficulties. So I'm going to start with a quote from M. Scott Peck. Maybe some of you have read the book, The Road Less Traveled. And he opens up his book and he says, "Life is difficult. This is a great truth. One of the greatest truths It is a great truth because once we truly see this truth, we transcend it. Once we truly know that life is difficult, once we truly understand and accept it, then life is no longer difficult. Because once it is accepted, the fact that life is difficult no longer matters. If we think that life is supposed to be Disneyland, then kind of every day we are going to be disappointed. But if we think life is difficult, it doesn't mean I'm negative, it doesn't mean I'm pessimistic, it means I am showing up. I'm realistic, I'm showing up. Then when life is difficult, instead of saying, why me? Why is this happening to me? We can ask different kind of questions and start asking, what now? What can I do about this now that this is in my life? And this is really what my book is about. And one might ask me, where did my journey begin? And it really is wonderful to speak to an audience who, I know, a lot of them, family and friends, are in the audience who have heard me speak before, but there's many of you who haven't heard me speak. So that's quite exciting for me. So just to give you a bit of a background, 26 years ago, my father was diagnosed with colon cancer. And actually, it's going to be this year half my life since the time he died, exactly half my life. And at the time, I was an interior designer. I'm very creative, and I have a creative side of me, and I had my own business working from home, and happily moving ahead in this direction, interior design. And then my father was diagnosed with colon cancer, and it was terminal. He was told 3 months to live. We were very lucky he got 14 months. But during that time, I became obsessed with reading about sickness, illness, what the patient can do to get better, and any books I could get my hands on was something that I was reading. And specifically the books that spoke to me was a book by Dr. Bernie Siegel, Love, Medicine and Miracles. And this book really transformed for me the journey of the patient. That he speaks about an idea of being an active participant in the healing journey. That we don't have to be people who say, doctor, you fix me. And I'm not saying we don't use doctors. We definitely use doctors, but we partner. And we say, yes, this is in my life. And logotherapy, which I'll come to just now, just telling you how I got there, taking a step back. So when we can ask, not why is this happening to me, but we can ask a different kind of question, which is, what now? What could my response be? Because circumstances happen, and most of the time we can't control the circumstances that happen. We can't control that it's raining. We couldn't control that COVID came. All that we can control is our response, our attitude, how we show up in the world despite what's going on in my life. So I eventually left the design world, and I went to study reflexology. And this was very exciting for me because I needed an in into the world of healing. I wanted to help myself, and I wanted to help clients to be well and to heal. And reflexology was wonderful, but there was a problem for me. It was very limiting. It was just working on the body. And there was a frustration for me when people would come and they would say, why do I have to be sick? Why can't I have a baby? I'm desperate to have a baby. And I felt so helpless. I'm like, I don't know why these things can't be. Let me just work your body. Let me make your body right. And then things will change. But it was frustrating for me because those why me questions were really sitting with people, and they were suffering from them. That's when logotherapy came into my life. I went on a trip to Poland, and it was absolutely fascinating. I was introduced to Dr. Viktor Frankl. Just show of hands, who's heard of logotherapy? Okay, so quite a majority of you, and some of you have heard of it from me. And logotherapy is a book written by Dr. Viktor Frankl. He was a neurologist and psychiatrist in the 1930s, very prominent in Vienna. And he thought he will be safe. He was Jewish, he thought he would be safe, but unfortunately he wasn't protected. No one was protected. Didn't matter who you knew or what you knew. If you were Jewish, everyone had the same kind of fate where they were going. And that's exactly what happened to him. And before he went into the camps, he was actually studying human behavior. What is it about human beings that can overcome difficulty and challenge? And that's what he was studying. And all of a sudden, he found himself in the camps for 4 years. He was there. He didn't know how long he would be there. And he had a human experiment around him, one which, please God, will never ever be repeated. Everybody was the same. No one had food. No one had names. No one had hair. No one had money. No one had belongings. Everyone slept the same, worked the same, and ate the same. So then his big question was, if everyone is the same, how come some are doing better than others? If typhoid is going around and it's catchy, how come not everyone's catching it? What is it in the human spirit that allows one to overcome difficulty and challenge? And he writes in his book, which just was drawing me in. The more I read, the more I wanted to learn more and more. He writes in his book that there were people who walked around and said, "Oh, wow, you look too terrible. Have half my piece of bread." And those people still woke up the next day. So what is it in us that can overcome difficulty and challenges? And so I was really inspired when I was in Poland and I was reading about all these ideas, and I thought to myself, wow, if they could get through that, I can get through anything. And I felt really inspired by all of these. Heartbreaking. Every day we went from one crying grave to another one. It was heart-wrenching. But it just gave me such a chizuk, such a strengthening inside, knowing human beings can overcome difficulty and struggle and challenges and illnesses and tough decisions and external situations. And if they can, then so can we. So can we, and so can I also inspire others to do that as well. So some of the things, which is not really the topic of the talk tonight, but if you want to receive a lecture of me speaking about all the principles of logotherapy, you can sign up to my newsletter and I'll send you one. The principles really of logotherapy is about if you can see a future and you can see yourself in the future, like he would walk around and say to them, "Come on, you've got a nephew in America, you'll get to them one day." He would encourage people to see a future. You've still got your life work to continue after this craziness is done. He would inspire people to a future, a brighter future, and that's how they would be encouraged to try and get there. So that's what he did. So for me, once I started studying logotherapy, then I wanted to work with people to change their why me questions. Why am I suffering from this? Why is this in my life? Why did this have to happen to me? To what now? Because we don't know why. And we're never ever going to get the real answer as to why this happened to me. We'll never know. And terrible, terrible things happen. The world over is filled with tragic, heart-wrenching stories of illness, of tragedy, of massacres, of terrible human trafficking. The world is filled with horrible stories, and what we want to know is not why these things are happening, because if that's where we focus our questioning, we will stay stuck in that place. We want to be asking, what now? What can I do now? What role can I play? How can I be an active participant in my life right now to overcome what's happening for me? And as I started working more with the cancer patients and with the infertility patients and with the difficulties and the illnesses, as I started working with people from that perspective, the what now, what can you do? One woman said to me, "You know what? In my family, we carry this BRCA gene, and I've also got it now. So what am I supposed to do now? Why did I have to get it?" I said, "You know what? We can't change that piece of information. But perhaps you could start a support group that could help others be empowered to an attitude of how to deal with it. Because it's in your family and you have so much knowledge about it, maybe there's something you can do to help others." And this becomes then empowering of what one can do. And my book is filled with stories of how people show up from these why questions with around illness and difficulty and challenges to changing them to what now stories. So being an active participant, I believe that every day, if we wake up breathing, it means we've been told you've got another chance. means today you have another opportunity. So even if you messed up yesterday and you said unkind words to someone and you need to repair something, if you woke up breathing today, it means today you have another chance. And how beautiful it is when we can repair, when we can go to someone connected from a place of love and say, was such nonsense. I'm so sorry I hurt you in this way. And please, can we just move on? Or repair anything, or reach out to people and make good and make right. Then it's like as if our days are worthwhile. No one wants to live to 120 of boring days of doing nothing. We want to have our days filled with life. Doesn't matter how many of them we're going to get, and no one knows how many of these days we are going to be gifted. But the point of life, because what we do really know is that everyone is going to meet the end at some point. This is a 100% guarantee. We know everyone, Moses, Mandela, Mother Teresa, or the Queen, all these great people who eventually meet the end. It's going to happen to us as well. We just don't know when. So the message is, let's live today. I woke up breathing, let's use it. It's an opportunity for me to do something in my life ahead of me. So there's many themes that I cover in the book, which I actually call Man's Search for Healing. And it's a play on the words of Dr. Viktor Frankl. His book is called Man's Search for Meaning. And what I do is I take the principles around logotherapy and I apply them to how we can use them around healing in our own life. And there's many, many quotes and lots of inspiration. But I also have a focus on more the medical side, because this is what I'm drawn to. So after I studied logotherapy, then also I've become like the perpetual student. I'm continuously learning. And even today I started a new course, which I'm super excited about, called IFS, Internal Family Systems. If any of you know it, it's very exciting. So after I studied the logotherapy, I then studied bereavement counseling, because I wanted to also help people with their grief. And after that, I studied trauma therapy, somatic experiencing. So I feel I have a lot of tools to be able to help people on different levels. And I bring many examples into the book to speak about how we can be the ones who are helping ourselves, that we can be the ones who are driving the car, that yes, we bring in other people onto our team, but we are the ones who are saying what is right for me. Because there can be two patients with equal pneumonia, with the same age and the same background, but one is getting better and one isn't. So we always have to look at the individual case. We can't just treat someone as if they themselves are just a file, a medical file. So the main themes, there's many themes in the book, and one of the main themes which I'll speak about is the mind-body connection. This is something I'm absolutely passionate about, that we cannot separate mind and body, because there was a time when if your heart was broken, you went to the psychologist, and if your arm was broken, you went to the doctor, and the two had nothing to do with each other. But it's not like that anymore, that today these things are connected. And we know just by thinking, wow, I'm nervous about something, then how does that play out? Here's nervous, you're thinking about it here, but it plays out as a physical sensation, right? Or you feel shame about something, and that's in the body, right? It's a mental concept, but you feel it in the body. We cannot separate mind and body. So the mind-body connection is very, very fascinating. So I'll tell a small story, a case study, which is not in the book. I love telling stories because I feel people learn from stories. Many years ago, a woman came to see me, and I'm not much of a sportsman, much to my husband's disappointment. I'm more into the healing arts. But this woman came to see me, and she wrote to me a message before she came. She said, I'm an iron woman. And I'm like, wow, that's an interesting concept. I wonder what an iron woman is. And he explained to me, if an iron woman is coming to see you, you have an obligation to get her back up and fit and running and working in whatever her problem is. Anyway, she came to me, and she had a problem on her left foot, right in the middle of the heel. And with reflexology, we use the body, also the reflexes give us little clues as to what's the body communicating. So where it is on the body gives me an idea of what's going on in the body. So already I knew that area of the foot has something to do with the digestive system. It's specifically got to do with hemorrhoids. And she said to me on the telephone, she cannot run. She has got this terrible pain in her foot, and the doctors are offering her explorative surgery, but she's an iron woman and she is not doing surgery. So then I got quickly educated of the iron woman process, and she was in her late 60s. She was in the senior category of sportsmen. And so she came to me, and always a question I asked her: how long has this been going on, and what was going on in your life at the time? So she said to me, it's been going on for about 6 months. And I said, and what was going on around that time in your life? So she said, well, funny you should ask, because my father-in-law died and my mother-in-law moved into my home with me. So this is a woman who was in her late 60s having mother-in-law issues. And I said, and how's that working out? So she said, it's absolutely terrible. I have to dig my heels in not to kick this woman out. Right? That's what she said to me. So listen to the words that she used. She said, I had to dig my heels in. And the place where she was presenting on her foot with the problem was in her heel. And I said to her, and tell me, by any chance, do you suffer from hemorrhoids? And she says, how do you know? So I said, well, your foot is, once I see your foot, then it's like already an into what's going on in the body. And she said to me, yes, I do. And I said, and when did that start? She said, that started about 4 or 5 months ago, but I didn't even pay attention to that because the pain in my foot is so bad. So everything she was using and all these little clues she was giving me about her physical manifestation of the problem was really what was showing up because of a difficulty with a mother-in-law in the home. And she gave me an example. It was really bad. She said that her mother-in-law would arrive at dinner time with a life-size photograph of the deceased husband, and she would set a place at the table and dish up food and do all things like this. So it was very challenging. And she said, I was just trying to keep my mouth shut and not say anything, but I really wanted to kick her out, again, with the foot, another word she was using. Anyway, we managed to work around the difficulties of the relationship, and she was open to it, anything but the operation. And as we worked more and more together, within 5 weeks, the pain was gone, and the mother-in-law was in an old age home. So we managed to, and she did it, she wanted to do it in a polite way. She didn't want to kick her out. She wanted to find the right place, and that's exactly what she did. So this is just a little bit of an idea about the mind-body connection. I'm absolutely passionate about making these connections and finding clues and helping clients delve into, where is it, what is it, and what can we do about it. Another one of the topics that I'm very interested in is the difference between being healed and being cured. So this is something that for me is really fascinating, because not everyone can be cured. Sometimes we have autoimmune diseases which are not going to be going away. And sometimes someone has a terminal disease that is not going to be going away. But that doesn't mean we can't be healed, that we can't come to a place where we're at peace with what's going on. And it's very sad, but I have had the privilege of working with terminal patients who have come to that place of they've accepted this is what's happening, and they've been able to move on to that next phase of saying goodbye to their family and in a place of being healed. So this is something also which I'm very interested in working with people. Another topic in the book is forgiveness. It's a huge topic, and I did a lot of research in writing about forgiveness in the book. So if that's issues that come up for you, it will be a helpful chapter. And then moving along, I actually came to writing the end of my book, and how actually the book came about was all through COVID. When COVID started and we were in lockdown, there went my business, closed, because I work with my hands, one-on-one with people, and that's half of my business. The rest is online or therapy online with the trauma counseling and the logotherapy. So I had all this time on my hands when I usually was doing reflexology. And then I was like, instead of the why me, I'm like, wow, I've got all this time. I've been wanting to write my logotherapy thesis and complete the training, and so I actually started writing it. And I'm so privileged that my teacher, Dr. Therese Chantal, who supervised me, she said to me, she is Dr. Viktor Frankl's student. So for me, it's like, he is Moshe, she's Yehoshua. And it was like learning from her, such a privilege. And she said to me, Devorah, this is not just a project for my eyes and the other supervisors to mark. This will be a book. And this must be something you offer to the world to help people to heal themselves. So at the end of last year, the book was ready, and I was writing up all the acknowledgements for the book, and then on the 27th of December last year, I had a terrible accident. I fell on my head and I broke my neck. Yeah, so that was quite a traumatic event that happened to me. But even, I don't know, just maybe because, like that doctor who in the beginning said, my whole life I've been preparing for this moment. So from the time my life, which was going in interior design, took a new turn into healing, I started preparing for this new challenge that was going to come my way. So on that day when I had this terrible fall, I was doing like a physiotherapy stretch. I had a strap around my waist, which was attached to my door. And my door was bolted. I was just for extra security, extra safety that the door couldn't open. And I was doing this big stretch. I had my hands on the wall, and the strap malfunctioned and unraveled and dropped me on my head. So, and I knew that this was really bad. At the moment I fell, it wasn't just like, oh damn, I've stubbed my toe. It was like, oops, it was more than oops. It was a big scream. And I was locked in a room, and I knew from watching enough medical Grey's Anatomy programs that I better not get up. So I knew I was locked in a room, and the door on the room I was in was a security door, so it was bolted, and it wasn't just one you could just kick in. And a wonderful neighbor came over with a crowbar, and he was breaking me out, and the fire department was there. And because of all this training I've had, then I went on to study, after the logotherapy I mentioned, I studied somatic experiencing, which is trauma therapy. So that was another tool in my toolbox to be able to use in the moment when I needed it. So there I was, locked in this room, absolutely petrified, also thinking, wow, my head must be bleeding, and I'd read books on having a stroke, and I was just wondering, oh my gosh, what's happening? And my foot was shaking, so I was like, this is good news, because must mean my spine is okay. So there were all little things, and I could look around my room and catch resources, like, wow, look at the photos of my family, and all my I've got plants, I love plants, so I'm a plant mommy. I'm sure some of you can identify with that concept. So I was looking at the plants and so many memories, and I was using that to help myself not be terrified till, the paramedics would get in and come in and save me. So really what happened is I'd written this book and I was happy with the book. But what then happened is my journey this whole year, and Baruch Hashem, I was so lucky because the doctor, when she came in to give me my diagnosis, she said, you fractured your C2, you're lucky you're not dead, you're lucky you're not paralyzed, and don't move. That's all she told me. And that's quite petrifying to hear. And I'm like, what? Because I was thinking there is like a brain problem, and then she tells me your neck is broken. I'm like, who breaks their neck? And in that very next moment, I thought to myself, whatever this is going to be, I'm going to be okay. And I think it is because I've been so exposed over the years to all of this learning and wanting to grow and know, and how do I heal myself and how do I help others, and this thirst for not asking why me, why do I have to fall, why does this have to happen to me, but really asking what now, what can I do about it, what tools do I have to help myself, and how can I then maybe inspire others. On my first night in the hospital, so it was a crazy first 24 hours, and I called my sister-in-law because I could not sleep. They said don't move, but then you want to like turn over, but you don't know how, and you're too scared. And I called my sister-in-law at 4 a.m. She lives in New York, so I knew it wouldn't be like a panic phone call. And I said to her, one day I'm going to speak about this because everything's going to be fine. And I didn't know what fine would be, but I did know inside of me that whatever it would be, I would be fine. So we don't, not every ending is always a happy ending. And Baruch Hashem, mine has been neck back to itself. But I think the important part, and I've since heard this, is from Dr. Viktor Frankl. Had one client whose name was Dr. Jerry Long, and he, at age 17, he broke his neck. And many years later, after he had become a doctor, and he was paralyzed from the neck down. His story was different to mine. And when Dr. Frankl interviewed him and said to him, how are things? How's your life going? And he said to him, Dr. Frankl, I broke my neck, but my neck didn't break me. And when I heard this story, I was like, wow, I really resonate with it. That things can happen to us in our lives, and they don't have to take us down. They don't have to be the thing that's it. That we have a resilience within ourselves that can show up to difficulty and hardship and challenges to be able to rise above. And in my daughter's bedroom, she has this anonymous saying which says, I never knew how strong I was until being strong was my only option. So generally, like today is a Sunday, like how many of us woke up this morning and thought, how can I be great today? Like it's not our usual thinking. But when we are in hot water and when we are going through difficulties or challenges or struggles and people around us are saying, wow, you're incredible, you're amazing. It's like being strong is all we can respond with. So when we are pushed into hard situations and difficulties and challenges, there is something within us, a resilience that can come out. So it's, if that difficulty never showed up in our lives, we might not have seen who we really are or what kind of greatness we had to be able to show up into this type of thing. So that's what we can also learn from Dr. Jerry Long, this attitude of life situations might come to break me, but I will not be broken, like to show up. Dr. Viktor Frankl calls it the defiant power of the human spirit. And this, where he learned about this defiant power was actually in the concentration camps. Like incredible inspiration. So like I said in the beginning, the first book I read was called Love, Medicine and Miracles, and written by Dr. Bernie Siegel. And he started this wonderful group for cancer patients many years ago. If I said, my dad, I read his book 26 years ago. His books had been around already for a while, but he's still so prominent and such an incredible human being. And what he started this group called ECAP, not incredible because that would be RCAP, ECAP, exceptional cancer patients. And they would come and he would say, you know what, if you want to wear your hospital gown backwards or forwards, you do that. And don't let anyone take your blood test until you know what it is, what they're testing for. Know what's going on and you be an active participant in your healing journey. And he inspired me so much that eventually, like I said, I changed careers. So after I had written the book, I actually quite sheepishly decided I'm going to write him an email. And he's 90 years old today and still going strong. And I was so humbled that he wrote such a magnificent response to me. And he said something like, he was the coach, but I am the healer, the beautiful healer that's taking on, the candle to the next path. And then I asked him if I could send the book to him and would he read it. I was quite chutzpanit, but he said he would love to read it, and he read the book, and he actually wrote a whole paragraph back to me of beautiful encouragement and endorsement, saying that it's a beautiful read on the art of healing, and further conversations that we've had, he feels that he is not really in this role so much anymore of still inspiring. His books are left behind him, but he feels so encouraged that his work is continuing, and he felt really proud that his name features throughout the book with quotes from him. So just in ending off, and there's so much so much more, obviously, that I would love to share. But for tonight, we're going to end off with a quote from Dr. Viktor Frankl. So usually always the quotes that people say from Dr. Frankl is about our attitude and how we can be in control. But I brought a different quote because this maybe is one you might not have heard. And he says, man's freedom is not freedom from conditions, but rather freedom to take a stand on whatever conditions might confront him. And this capacity to take such a stand is what makes us human beings. And I just absolutely love all these quotes that come out of Dr. Frankl's mouth, because what he is saying is that sometimes we're in situations where we think this shouldn't be this way, like this is not what was meant to happen. And if we all wrote the scripts of where our lives were going to be, you know, who knows of what we might have missed out of, the learnings and the growing and all the opportunities that came along the way. So it's not that we are fighting against what ought to be, we are really prevailing over what really is. And I think that is what my book is, my offering to the world, this man's search for healing, that we should all be able to find our own strengths inside to overcome any challenges. We're in any realm or sphere of our lives to be able to have healing and wholeness and well-being in our lives. Thank you very much. And I'm happy to answer some questions.
The books for sale, right?
I have some books for sale. They're 70 shekel. If anyone wants one, well,
I highly recommend it. I'm in the middle of mine, so I just wanted to say thank you first of all for tonight and for sharing, for continuing to share. I have a quick question of when you referenced that you were in Poland and that was the turning point for you. How many years ago was that?
It was 2011 I went to Poland. So I was already, that was when I found logotherapy.
Right,
So
I was wondering when, after your father's death, was that exact point?
My
So
father
it's-
died in 1997.
Right, so
so,
kind of in the middle, like that
yeah.
turning point of...
Yeah, it was when really this like I was hearing these stories that were like breaking me down. I remember sitting in the bus after going to one horrible family forest of mass graves and feeling like a mother. I was gutted. I got into the bus after the one. I was just heaving and heaving and heaving and heaving. And one of the rabbis, Rabbi Ramon Whitmont, he came to sit next to me, and he was so wonderful. And he said to me, "This is the story of the Jewish people. Right now we are on our way to drink vodka and to celebrate the lives of these people and to take what we can from the hardships that they went through to give us the life that we have today." And he said, "We will not be knocked down and we will not be thrown into graves, and we will go and we'll drink vodka and we will sing tonight." And he said, and that is the story of the Jewish people. We go through the ups and we go through the downs, but we always get up. And it gave me a lot of encouragement, because some of the stories still like give me nightmares of the choices that those poor parents had to make for their children, and which child, and to have to go through such terrible things. And I wanted to walk away from Poland not feeling like, ugh, and so heavy, but I wanted to feel inspired, like, if they could, I can, and so can all of we. And I wanted to like bring this message to help others. So I think that was where logotherapy, for me, it was born in the place of absolute horror. And if people could rise above that, then it says that mankind can. You know, someone said to me, "Is why did you call the book Man's?" I said, "Because it's mankind." You know, he said, "It's not about women and it's not about men. This is not, what are your pronouns? This is not a pronoun book. This is about what we are capable of, like what everyone is capable of. Doesn't matter what your background is or where you come from or what you might have gone through in your life, that this is possible for everybody.